So, following up, and sort of to continue on with our series, and also Mikey and I were talking a lot, and this has kind of been a recurring thing actually in the bullpen as well, that focusing a little bit more on the basics rather than overloading of information will likely be the focal point of education in the new year, with the goal obviously being profitability and not market enigma in a sense. So we can have additional stuff, right, with candlestick theory and whatnot to level up on. However, probably best to not be so interested in what each candle is doing, painting a picture of price and missing quality moves, or at least not stalking them, right? So that's going to be the focus of the backtesting going forward, and it's likely going to be the transition to the live markets going forward. The challenge for me, obviously, in the morning is that there's so much information that we have to be aware of because the volatility is so high. But going forward with the backtesting, even in this sort of scalping strategy, we'll also be looking at the wombo and sort of how the market is moving, where we're expecting to move to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So for example, in this right here, if we're looking at this, we did this, I believe, the day before on the 8th. So now we're sort of looking at, are we bullish or bearish in a sense? And we should be able to tell that pretty straight away, at least what we're looking for in terms of being able to determine if we're going up or down. So for example, let's keep it a little bit simple. We've got protected high here, right? We've got protected high here. So as much as we love this move, we are bearish, at least on our 15-minute time frame. Now, whether we fail underneath here and go on a rocket ship, who knows, right? And we look at this internal failure to determine when we're ready to make this retracement. But this retracement is just trading back. Ideally, let's just say this hypothetically, we've now achieved our objective going higher, right? Now we can begin the process of trading back down, or we get held up. And if we're going to get held up, we have a pretty good spot here, right, that we would expect maybe a bounce out of. Accumulation, SNDR that broke the SNDR. We're now trading back into it. We actually got a little bit of a move out of this, right? So why I'm looking at this from a simplistic point of view is that we're actually doing this, or that's what we're looking for. Whether we're involved or not, or whether we're waiting for a long, or whatever we're doing, we need to know what, like, we're not chasing a long here to then break this high, because that would be anticipating a break of structure, right? We're looking to clear out liquidity, and then if the market wants to continue blasting higher, it will tell us with its PA in here what it wants to do. For example, I would have wanted sort of a lethargic movement into this and then continuation, maybe a trade back in and then gone, or this movement itself to be violent. As a result of this, especially in the pocket, we're looking at trading back down to here, which would be kind of your origin, your move. Maybe there's a little bit of information on the 5. I'm guessing there's a swing to sort of look at. There's one here. That's not one. Sideways accumulation. I think there's a pretty good one here that I would expect to bounce out of. Right? And that's all I'm looking for areas that will give us movement to the upside. Right? So I'm going to mark this out. But does everybody understand why we're expecting lower prices, at least right now? We're all on the same page. Even though the bottom one looks mitigated with that wick. In terms of this, This one was mitigated, yes, but it's an area that broke a significant area to the left. So we got our first tap into it. It also aligns with the 23.6 of this area, right? Which is generating at least a reaction so far. We've traded back into it to the midpoint of it, and we're starting to unwind. So people will look, if they're short and they're wrong, say we trade back down to here, and then we want to go on a rocket ship. This is the area that would defend this and then have a higher time frame push if it's going to break structure. Right? So similarly to what we were talking about over this week, where if we're looking for this movement and we're right? If we're looking for this movement and we're right, then it does something like this and we get a huge move out of it. Alternatively, if we've got a key area of interest that we're correct and we're wrong about the trend, we still make money, right? We're happy either way. If the higher time frame trend continues or not, we should still see movement that comes out of it. So we're right if we're right and we're right if we're wrong. Pretty good place to be. Equivalently, from the bearish side, if they're shorting here on the tap back in, which I think would have been a viable short, right? This that happened here at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we're looking at whereabouts this came from. Okay, there's your wombo combo confirmation. Right? So everybody's short here. If they're right, it trades down to this, maybe you get a bounce out and then it flushes below this low and they're really right. Or it trades down to here and then the higher time frame goes to 15,550 or whatever. And they still make money. But either way, everybody's looking to see what happens in this area of interest. Right? So we yeah, exactly. Like Tom's saying. Right? We want to be in these areas that are going to get significant movements. We're managing our risk as it moves. We're identifying what we want to see going forward. But we're still able to make money if we're drawing our areas correctly. And usually the market will tell us based off of the confirmation move that comes in. Right? So I'm looking for confluence. It's not just this area. Yes, it's been mitigated, which means that if we get sort of a double bottom in here, it will probably give us our move, but I'm expecting something to come out of this. This is the M15 wombo, yes. Yes, it is. Right. In terms of higher time frame, and this is pretty much the majority of the time that I spend on the 15-minute chart, right? I want to know my immediate bias. Bearish, okay? So I'm looking for shorts until proven otherwise. Obviously, this isn't an M15 zone. Neither is this. This candle closed inside of this one. So we have no structure at all. So this second distribution move should be violent or not violent. Dumper truck. Dumper truck to where? Probably right underneath this low if it's going to go. Pretty quick. It should definitely take this one, which might give us a bit of a move. I'm not going to take any scalps at all until we start getting a little bit of consolidation, wherever that ends up being. Right? I need to see attempts to fail with the current trend, and that's how I scalp. So those of you guys that are looking to add that in, I would only preface that by saying if you're consistently profitable, as I myself are actually transitioning to a little bit more of a swing trading mindset with higher size for this year. So we got 2 minutes to open. Let's see what we end up getting. I'm probably going to put this on 4x and we're going to see if our thesis is correct. At least right now what I'm looking at is that we might get something like this, maybe even sweeping out this high here, and we continue on. And these areas of interest, we might get little movements that come in, right? And then we see what ends up happening in here, right? If we get accumulation in here, then we go lower. If we get a failure and a higher time frame move that's starting to clear some structure, then we probably trade back in and head higher, at least to this consolidation. But either way, we're trading back down here based off the respect that goes on here. Otherwise, we wouldn't have broken this low as significant as we did, and we certainly wouldn't have seen this as being a valid high on the 15-minute chart. So let's zoom down. The good news is that even if we're wrong and it doesn't trade down to here, we can pivot and we can wait for that higher time frame move and then risk off of some sort of retracement back in. Oh yeah. Yep. We're seeing urgency from the bearish side. Right? You're seeing the inability. I think that's a little tricky. That high being 52.75, that close being 52.75. So we actually still haven't validated that high. This is a little unclear. Unclear to bearish, even though we closed above it. Right? And I think it's important as well. We get caught up so much in so much information to the tick to try and pinpoint that exact thing because we're chasing perfection. But if we pause this chart right now and we zoom out slightly, and I implore you guys to do this during the day as well, what's the market doing? What's it attempting to do? Right? Are we attempting to rally and we're going nowhere? Are we attempting to sell off and we're going nowhere? That'd be a pretty hard argument to make. Are we attempting to sell off and going nowhere? No. We're getting these closures underneath with strong bear bars. Strong bear bars. Right? So we failed up here on our bias time frame, our 15-minute, and we're unloading. So rather than kind of looking at this going, did this close above here? What do we got? And that's important as well when you have like a valid low. But if you get a valid low, then we really should see something strong if we're going to really make a push, shouldn't we? Like if we look at this, is this really creating a low here? No, it's not. Right? So rather than sort of chasing perfection, it's better to zoom out and at least see what price is doing, what it's attempting to do, what it's succeeding at doing. It's tried twice to rally here, and instead we've got this. Right? So I implore you guys to kind of zoom out a little bit if you're getting a little lost in the sauce. Right? My expectation of this candle is death. Why? Because we just tried rallying from the blows and we have a very, very weak bull bar. Down we go. To nobody's surprise. Now, is this viable to look at short? Yeah, I mean, I don't want... I had a little bit of a conversation today with a gentleman. And, like, okay, cool. Like, where's the energy of the move? But say we drew it from there. Well, look at that. There's the wombo combo. Well, yeah, but are we taking it here at 935? Maybe. Maybe that's a strategy you'd rather go into. But this strategy and this system and this way of looking at the market, this patience that we implore, it's good enough that we don't need to be hindsight warriors. There will be setups today. We don't have to force it. And you might like that momentum in the first 15 minutes. And that's cool. But if you're not consistently profitable yet, I would implore you guys to avoid trading in the first 10 minutes. Because this could have blasted higher, taking everybody out, at least above this high. And let's actually slow it down here because we're starting to get a little bit of movement. Right? Like the worst thing is being right and getting taken out because the entry wasn't spot on, or your entry was spot on, the volatility was insane. We had a lot of that last week. Right? So we got 5 minutes or a little bit less to our first major macro time where a reversal typically happens. So we're looking at this. We've got no structure forming. We're starting to really unload here, to nobody's surprise. We talked about that. Based off of the lack of structure here, there should be the lack of structure going down. So people getting caught trying to go long off of these lows or whatnot, you learn pretty quick that's not the way of profitability. You might get paid some days, especially if the volatility is good and you ape in at the right time. But we want consistent decision making, which means that if we're going to go long underneath these, then we have an understanding of the probability of doing so, whether we make money or not. And it looks like both of these would have actually made 10 points. Cool. Right. I'm going to draw something underneath this low. I expect it to be taken. Doesn't look like that was snapping to it. Let's try that again. There we go. All right, and the reason I'm drawing underneath is because I think given this time frame, we would at least sweep it if we're going to trade higher back up into this. Right? And this will be your wombo, which would then take us maybe back up into this zone at 380. If this area is going to hold at all, which I suppose you could argue maybe not viable. But we'll see. Right? So whereabouts is the energy of the move? This actually barely traded back down. It looks like it didn't actually hit the wombo from that. Let's have a look. Not quite. It tried. Right? But I think a lot of buying stepped in here after that failure. And certainly, if you look at this 15-minute, I think that low is very important. Now, it provided this, so this isn't exactly what I'd be looking for. That's a bit of a stretch, but we are in our area of interest. Yeah, I don't really like a wombo from this area, if I'm honest. I think that that this low is definitely where buying came in after that double bottom. Not really liking the clear sort of top. I wouldn't be terribly happy about drawing it from this high. Usually I like to draw it to a bull bar, and then this is being inside of that. Right? So ideally, yeah, that's very tough. That's very tough, even if I drew it like that. Right? I'm gonna leave it here, with this being the manipulation leg. But I'll be fairly honest, I haven't had a lot of back testing with this sort of price action on the 15. I haven't seen this very often. So that makes me very hesitant with this. I do like this area for a bounce if we sweep this and fail. Trading back up. But I'm not really seeing anything that I would really be that confident in drawing it there. Let's see if we have something on the 5. Okay. I can get behind that bull bar, at least to its open. Let's do that. right? I think this higher time frame is a little unclear still, so this definitely wouldn't be an A plus sort of trade, but I can understand this area being the retracement area. Definitely not seeing anything I want, at least just yet. And it looks like we trade a little bit lower. And if in that case, like if we don't start to see failure underneath this, like this would have to like sweep and we'd have to see some sort of valid low maybe being formed, which would then trade us higher. I'm not very confident in this sweep just yet. But I do think we take this low, for sure. If only because of the failure that's happening above. Right? So, immediate scalping idea. Not for the faint of heart. Inside of our area of interest. We have an uncredible low. We have an impulse down after trading and failing higher. What happens if we can't validate this bar? If we see a sign of weakness that goes above it? That would be a scalp. Now, it's not the opportune time of it, so I'm going to avoid this. But this would be an area that if we weren't at a reversal time, that I'd be looking for that low, and I would have just made, well, this would have been 25, 30 points almost. Not that I would have taken 25 or 30 points, I would have been looking for this low, and that's a little bit excessive. Right? So I'm actually going to take this off because I don't like that urgency. Get out of here. And this low's actually been done as well. Let's see what else we got. No trades so far, even with this unwind. Patiently waiting for something. Patiently waiting for something that I can get a hold of. Nasty business. Inside of our area of interest, okay. Right, now I'm not on the 1 minute right now because I'm actually seeing how this 5 closes. If we close in here and have a nasty sweep, then we might be looking at some sort of lift that comes up, right? And we're seeing a little bit of at least accumulation going on for that. But there's no change of personality, at least just yet. You could argue that there's an aggressive trade to be made here, but I don't really like how the higher time frame is delivering, which means that we're seeing a lot of significant pressure above us. This being a key area of interest. Right, we've already traded up to it once, had a little bit of a push. Looks like we want to trade up at least to liquidate it. And similar to what we've been talking about this week too, what happens in these areas actually tells us a lot about ourselves as individuals and traders, right? Are we looking long right now? Or are you waiting for a retracement to get short? That's your personality trait as a trader. Whether you want to take that contrarian trade with high probability and you're waiting for something very specific, right? This to me looks like it wants to go higher, right? In fact, if this fails, then I'm probably looking long up to 90. I might have already just missed that that little blip down. Right? At least it should try and validate this as a low, which I think it might have just done. Not clear. I think we still go lower, if only because of our 5-minute chart. Right? We've got this high here at 97, which I'm going to mark out. I definitely think we attempt to trade above that high. And then failure above here to validate this means that we're actually still heading lower on our intermediate time frame, despite what this would have us believe. And this is sort of the multi-time frame analysis aspect too. If we see failure lower and we have an intermediate objective higher, that's sort of what scalping is to me. We've got an objective higher, we're seeing failure to go lower. This is a market inefficiency where it should trade up and at least achieve that goal. Right? So ideally, we're now trading into this. 10 a.m. about to hit. Just validated that as a high internally. I'm going to avoid this. I still think we trade up to this, but I can't justify that as a scalp now. If this closed inside of this one, then I could have. Right? Doesn't mean the trade won't work out. It's just not what I wanted to see from a scalping perspective, and that's okay. Right? So if we enter a range, then we're looking for something like this inside of here. I want this high validated on our 5-minute time frame. We got 4 minutes now, so it's got a lot of time to mess around. If this validates, then we look for something like this outside of our Wombo area of interest. This last swing that aligns with the 23.6. People are taking profits clearly, right? So we're looking for something like that, right? Now, I do think this sweeps. So in order for it to do that, is there a decent probability of it closing above here? Probably not. Why? Because if we close above here, now we're looking for the tap back in that doesn't sweep this candle to go higher. Now, obviously, there's a chance that it sweeps it twice or sweeps it after putting in that high. There's also a chance that we actually get a valid swing which then breaks structure. In which case, if that happens, now we're looking for that trade back in to leave after structure's been broken. That's higher probability if we get it. Right? Higher probability to go up, lower probability of it happening. As you can see right now, at least so far, we've got 1 minute left. So far, we're failing this 5-minute high. Right? We've now got this. Should we tap back into this? Well, guess what? You know where I'm looking to short. Right? But I need to see failure here. I'm actually going to slow this down. Right? So my objective lower, this low being 63.75. If we're failing to validate this high, guess where we're going? Right? So 2 bull bars, I think we sweep this one, which would be my entry. And it looks like, if we pause this, that being 94.75, this being 302, I can actually risk 10 points. So I'm going to have 2 contracts for this trade. I'll peel one off if we get a change in order flow, just in case I'm wrong. And, okay. And we'll see if I'm right. Let me put this down here. I'll take one off if we go. But this should be immediate if we're right. Should be immediate. As in finished business, objective done, and gone. Okay, there goes one. And I like putting myself in the firing line for these trades that I'm either right immediately or I'm wrong immediately, but okay. right? So now we've got our push through. If this trades back up, ideally to this area of interest, and then we get a strong movement away, right? Ideally this trades through this candle. Then I put my stop to break even as we've attempted to trade back up and failed. But the whole reason, right? So this is now break even, beautiful. But the whole reason of this move is because this high, the SNDR high, yes, we closed above it on the 1, but our intermediate time frame gives us our buy. Right? Double bull bar. You could argue being involved in this one, that's fine. I wouldn't have liked that it closed bullish. But I'm looking for it to tap into this open at 94, and now I've got to stop above this high at 302. With the 5-minute time frame telling me that we're not willing to go higher right now. Now that being a bull bar, nasty, right? We very well could reach that high. Right, now I want to see what happens underneath this low at 75. I'm not looking at this. I don't care how many points I'm up. I'm looking at the chart. What's the chart telling me? I want to see violence. I like this. I don't like that it closed bullish. But what I actually don't like most about this candle is that we had tried to sell off and we actually closed there. I want to see similar to this. Even if they're bear bars, I want to see something similar to that. Because guess what? If we're in a range, then we're operating on liquidity. And whereabouts is the liquidity in this position right now? It's either above this high or it's above this high. Right? So right now, we're looking this low. As much as I love this position and everything that's moving in our favor, I need to see strength underneath that low. Come on, come on, come on. Let's go. There we go. Good, good, good. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Right to our low, 64s. Whoop. Okay. So, what are we doing here? What do you guys think? Aggressively trailing our stop? Are we flat? Do we like that body closure underneath and we're holding for our target? Where are our emotions at being up 20 points or whatever? Obviously our position looks good. The trade is not invalid by any means. Look at what we're doing right now. Right? We still think it trades underneath 64. Whatever goes on in here, it trades underneath this low, in my opinion. I don't know why that's actually not at the low. There we go. Right? We can wait. Absolutely we can. If it closes inside, then we mark it close. If it closes under or inside of this 5-minute. Right? I still think it goes underneath this, but we have to manage our risk, which means that I'm not really willing to allow this to mess around or take its time. Right? So in my opinion, there's maybe 4 possibilities of what goes on here. If we put our stop above this high, 80 to 25, Now we're really protecting ourselves. Right? But the possibility of it trading above this and going down, if it trades above this, I don't think we go down straight away for two reasons. Number one, if this closes inside, it's likely going to take this high. Which means what? Which means we now have a high that put in a low. We've now broken that high. Now we're looking at this, aren't we? Change in order flow. With a 5-minute sweep internally. Despite me liking this, we might go above this high. We might go above that one. Right? We might trade into here and fail. I don't know. Right? So that's sort of the mentality of, okay, what's the likelihood of it trading above here and going down? Essentially what you want to do is you want to look at your intermediate time frames for that possibility. Now that said, like, we could also close it out right now and just wait and watch for, I wouldn't go long because I'm expecting this movement and I don't care what this does. If this breaks this high, then, you know, maybe we get something like this, right? Maybe we get something like this. Assuming it doesn't fail above it, we would get something like this until this movement hits likely our wombo from the energy of this move up in the 30s and then dies. Right? So here's our 5, definitely expecting lower. Here's our 15, also expecting lower. We've got an imbalance above this at 305. Right? So I think this is the best option of trailing our stop, because I don't want it to close inside, and if it takes that high, then I think it closes inside, in which case we either range or we go lower. Yeah. Okay. Well, Mikey just bought the market. Okay. Thanks for the heads up, Mikey. And by the way, once you make a decision, even if this dumps and it makes me look silly, please do not ape back in the middle of a range or whatever. This is where tilt happens. And we close inside. Okay. We could, absolutely. That's what I'm waiting for. I want this low taken. I don't know why. Whatever. I hate NinjaTrader for charting for this exact reason. Let's speed this up a little bit. Range bound PA. Everybody feels like a legend going long in here. Their stops underneath this. They're about to get wrecked before the major move happens. But we see if they're going to take this high at 302 or 297. But for the same reason that everybody was shorting the hell out of this, and now they're squeezed, you're likely going to see the same thing with longs. Yeah, and that's an important point Mikey's making as well, right? If you're inside of a position, usually you're so focused on managing that position that what ends up happening is we miss key pieces of information, right? For example, if you're short and should be stalking along, but you're managing your short position, right? There goes that high. Would have taken us out actually. So let's see if it takes that 302 or not. Right? We just built an SMDR here. Little consolidation inside of this range. Let's see if we take this. And if we fail, well, guess what? We're expecting to do something. We then fail to do it. Technically, we validated this low here. That made a high and then another high, validated. We've now closed below that protected low. In theory, we actually are bearish, but I'm seeing this more range bound. So I'm not terribly concerned with structure. I'm more looking at order flow. Right? Sweeping below this candle, nasty. But in theory, with this break lower, we're actually looking to see, as I don't expect this high to go, because we've now just taken the low to put it in. So we just did this. Effectively, we just did this. It's more actually like this. We expect this to happen now, right? This low being that, or you could argue that one, I suppose. Putting in a new high. Now it just violated it. Ideally, this candle should have closed somewhere in here. Either way, what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? Yep. Price 2, tip its hand. Price 2, tip its hand. Right? Anybody going short? Probably viable. You're starting to get some consistent selling now. This is a very risky short. Somewhere in here. Maybe just above 90. You've now got a break of this low. We're definitely doing this. Right? High, low, death, maybe. You don't see the 5? Still failing above this high. This is our key piece of information. This high gets validated, major different story. And you actually will sometimes see, this is a lot more clear than what you might see in the normal market. By normal market, I mean like last week. Where this candle will actually close inside of this one. Technically, it'll validate this high. But it's certainly not clear. Right? So if you're stalking along, you want this low taken. Otherwise, we're actually looking for reasons, or at least price tipping its hand here and now reacting to the possibility of price unloading to it still. Right? And it looks like from that analysis, I just missed a short opportunity. How much do we make on average in a month? Not as much as I should. Not as much as I should. I make anywhere from about 15 to 25 from payouts. Although not as much in the last couple of months because there's no sense me taking it out for tax. There it goes. Now we get excited. Now we get excited. We've got 3 minutes. We've got 3 minutes. Right? 10:25. If we sweep and fail this, beautiful. So what do you want to see? Ideally, we want to see, we've had this candle close underneath, cool. We want to see significant buying come in. Either we sweep this one, which would be beautiful, that's your kind of aggressive entry. And the only reason you would take this, given the consolidation, would be expecting that movement back up. That first movement back up should trade into this imbalance, and now we're looking to see if that imbalance puts in a new low, right? So you would get something like this, trades back, and then ideally we go. And what that would do, it would give us our 5-minute sweep and failure. Right? So our 5, we're looking on the 1 minute, not for structure. We're looking on the 1 minute for the ability to know if this is going to sweep and fail or not. And then there's multiple ways of getting involved, isn't there? Ideally, we want that low validated. Right? There's your sweep and fail. Here's your aggressive entry where we can get wrecked if we're wrong. But if you're right, you're buying pretty much the low of the next 45 minutes to an hour. We don't need to be in here. Yes, that's exactly it. Right? Now, we can be in here, cool. Right? We're definitely seeing what we want with 2 minutes to go. Ideally, we close above this high. But there's multiple ways of getting involved. Ideally, we've got 78.25. This is actually a double top. I'd love this to trade into this imbalance, trade lower, ideally to this open, which would be 66. Right? So I want to see something similar to this. You could already be involved in this push up. Again, that's very aggressive, but we're looking for this. Right? That open, because this is the candle that took liquidity. So if this is going to be an order block and we violate it, now everybody that's sold in here, or at least the algorithm or whatever you want to believe that's sold to push underneath this low, now wants to mitigate their positions. This is the area that should be tapped back into. If this violently moves up and you get sort of your inverse or whatever else, then you're looking at the wick. Then you're looking at the wick, and now you're drawing something like this out, and you're looking for a potential reaction in this area. Right? Let's see what we got. $78.25, still a double top. What a schmuck. Okay, turn of the minute. We've got 1 minute for the next, well, we've got 1 minute, and then we've got the last minute in this 5-minute candle that has to close above this low. So what do we want to see? Ideally, we trade lower and then failure, which then goes higher. I don't like that we didn't take this imbalance just yet. So I think we need a little bit more information, but I am definitely interested in this long, especially if we can take underneath here and then fail. Right? And I think I'm going to actually stretch this to 20 just because of the target would be this high and then probably higher than that. Trading into this, still looking for that open. This is very aggressive still. right? I need to see a little bit of confirmation here. Right, I don't want to get caught in this double top and then blasting lower, and then this 5 actually closes underneath here, and then it's death. Right, I don't need to be early, but I need to make sure that I'm on the right side of this curve. And that's especially important inside of weeks like last week where the volatility was 30 points. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, boom. Ooh, that was close, but I'm in. Okay, stock goes underneath the low. And looking for this high, 302.25. And if we get our higher time frame movement, then I'm going to move this up and my stop goes up with it. What I don't want to see is failure to trade above this high. Okay, good. Good. Not liking that at all. I'm going to tighten my stop up here. Actually, no, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it here. I'm going to keep it here. Right? Because there is a possibility of it sweeping out this wick. We have validated the sweep on the 5. We could trade higher, trade underneath this, and then go up. I think that's a viable solution. It's not really what I want to see at all with this. But I think taking this off very aggressively is unwise, or else I shouldn't be in this trade in the first place. Okay, starting to get some lift, good. Definitely need to take this liquidity. I wouldn't want to see it sweep and fail. Right? I think this is definitely the next objective given the response of this. I do like the 5 minute. Right? And I like the zone that we're in. I like the 5 minute sweep and failure, right? But we've got to see some sort of lift going in here. Still haven't taken our objective. There we go. Finally. This fails and I'm gone immediately. Cool. I think I'm definitely break even now. Still looking for this high. The 5 minutes going to be interesting. Right? We're still in a range. Even if we close above this, that's not really validating a low, as we're inside of this candle's range. So we're not actually trading to the middle of it. And guess what? If this fails here and we go lower and it takes me out, fine. That means we're definitely going lower, and in which case we're going underneath those lows we marked out here at wherever that low is, 18. And I definitely don't want to be chasing this long. Definitely do not want to be chasing that long. Right? Still sitting pretty, a little bit of a lethargic movement going in. As everybody, if everybody's on the wrong side and we're going to make some bank, then away we go. The interesting thing is this is technically our SNDR here. This is the area though that really made a decision for this range to stop. We see the buying came in from here. Or sorry, selling I should say. Right? So our lower time frame wombo should be this area. Right? Should be that area. But inside of a range, I don't like typically looking at this. Right? I'm looking mainly at this fractal here. We're getting a little bit of a lift. Beautiful. Right back up to this consolidation. If I was in 2 contracts, I'd probably be pulling this off. And higher time frame double bottom, as Mikey just said. Yes, correct. 100%. Right? So ideally, we get a lift above this manipulation leg. Right? We got this high here at 87.25. Not the last structural candle, but definitely an area that I'm monitoring for sign of strength or weakness, which will be this high here. Right? So these kind of areas that are not structural, but you're monitoring them for strength or weakness, they act as early warning signs. So I'm delighted with this position. But if we're seeing major selling go on above this high, then we're looking for a trade back down. We're not looking for a trade back down, sorry. We're looking for the market to move back down. You've now got equal highs here. We'll see if this gets taken. If we take them and fail and comes back down, then I'm flat. Mainly because, as you guys know, equal highs are the bane of my existence. Who would be flat right now? Who would be looking to add to their position? What will you guys be doing? You guys comfortable sitting break even? We taking this off inside of this nonsense? And by the way, what's the higher probability entry? The higher probability entry is this one here after we break all this, isn't it? In theory, we should actually be stocking shorts. But this double bottom means that I'm definitely not shorting here. I will not be shorting here, and I don't care if that drops 100 points. This looks weak to me. Getting a little bit of a sweep into this area. This would be somewhere where I would expect to at least trade above this high and then these equal highs. Whoop. Right? So major failure above this. We're now seeing this sort of grind to unload. This closes strongly bearish. I'm probably going to take this off. And I don't care if that's 11 points, 3 points, whatever it is. 2, 1. Ooh, okay. Fine. Some buying coming in. right? Not good. Definitely not good. What could we be building right now? Right, well, technically right above. 50 points. 50 points above this. Intermediate time frame SNDR. Look at this. Yep. Here comes the stop build. 20 points given up. 20 points. Okay. That's also why usually when we're in with 2 contracts, you take one off aggressively. We're wrong, but we would have still made some money before this did whatever it wants to do, which we're expecting these lows. Right? And ideally this runs. And we might be able to take some scalps on the way down, who knows. But I think right now what we wanted to happen is not happening. We can't validate this 5-minute high. This might be the trade back down, liquidating this to then run. We'll find out very, very quickly if that's the case. Right? But I think we would want to see something very, very specific, in which case, you know, we've set up this barbecue, but we're not seeing what we want for the long side. So now you're looking at different little things. You've got your 5-minute that happened. You've now got something fractally on the 1-minute. Something very similar. Right? Strong. Well, continuous selling leading to climactic action. We're now looking at this high. Right? Continuous selling leading to climactic action failed above this high. This is what price being fractal means. You will see these things happen on all time frames. Usually, you will see it happen on an intermediate time frame, and then the lower time frames will follow suit. That does not mean I'm going short in here, but it means that I'm very much leaning bearish. If I was going short, I'd be looking for some sort of wombo combo up here in the 320s. I think there will be scalps if we unload based off of this SNDR idea that we can take. But this is not what I want to see bullish, and I have to sit on my hands now. And the reason that I don't like these intermediate time frame shorts, they're challenging because you have bullish structure forming, and then usually you'll get the movement that happens, and then we trade back in because this is still a range on your 5 or 15-minute time frame. So people will sell here expecting lower prices, or maybe they'll go long here where we did and get stopped out without taking profits accurately. As the market continues to range, we should be looking for like maybe even a long underneath this. I think that's low probability, but based off of range concepts, we would expect that until we get a major change in personality, in which case we get like a candle that closes underneath here, or at least some sort of movement that's down here that attempts to rally and can't. That would be key as well. Right? Not seeing that yet. This would actually be a long I would consider scalping. Oddly enough. Now, for the purposes of this back test, It's not something I want you guys studying, as that's like a C plus type trade where you're looking for this movement maybe to take this high at 69, or at least challenge this high at 68. Right, there it is. And the only reason you would even consider it is if this candle was weak, or at least, sorry, in this case it would be strong. Right, looking to just trade back into the range until proven otherwise. And proven otherwise would mean that this candle wouldn't be as weak as it was, especially taking the liquidity here. When it's ready, we'll know. Let's actually speed this up a couple more ticks. When it's ready, we'll know. Look at this nonsense. Whoop. Violent. Right? And now everybody finally understanding it's a range, whereas we kind of knew over here. They're trying to go long in here. Late to the party. If you're going to identify a range, you want to identify when you have structure, not breaking anything. Structure, not breaking anything. Right? Valid high, valid lows. I should make a video on that. Oh, wait. I think we already did. Let's pause this for 5 minutes. Not committed enough. I agree. All right. Where were we? Right. Possible SNDR. Next target after this failure. Assuming continuation. Definitely not what we want to see. Right? Failure underneath, generated nothing, swept above that high, continuing lower. All right. Get rid of this now. Get rid of that now. Get rid of that now. Not missing any sauce yet. Let's get rid of all of this. And let's see. Let's see if we get any scalps that come in off of this. Shall we? Or do we just die? Or do we just die? You might get a lower time frame SNDR right above it as well, which supports the higher time frame fractal theory. Sometimes you do see that for little scalps and whatnot, but I think that selling here to break the low is not a like right here is probably a pretty good spot. You know, trying to rally can't. Maybe even something higher. Who knows? I don't think that's a viable way to look at consistency, even though I do expect that to get nuked. right? So when you're looking for continuations and wombos and whatnot, like, you might consider something like this, right? I don't really think that's fair, right? But at least when you guys are starting to learn, those sort of continuation trades can look very enticing. But I think as it stands right now, we're waiting for a little bit of structure to form. We're just taking that low. And it's easy to get over eager as well. We've now finally taken our objective. Yes, let's go. Where do I get long? Where can I hit this thing, right? Oh, maybe it'll fail this imbalance and then go lower, and then we're away to the races, right? Right? It's not filled. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want that. We want high probability areas of interest. Now, in fairness, this could have been a higher time frame double bottom. Didn't work out. Okay, took my shot. Definitely not going short in here, although that would have definitely paid. We're at 11 o'clock. Probably made very little, at least so far this morning. Not taking any of these continuations to trade down, despite being right on our analysis. I need to see something pretty specific. You see little cheat code entries. I suppose that could have been a decent sell. So now what? Possibly a 5-minute sweep, right? Candle closing here. 5 minutes going to be looking quite juicy. Little sweep. Okay. Ideally, we validate this as a high. And even then, where's our last protected high? Technically, it's actually all the way internally. It's probably up here. This being inside of a range of this. Right? Even on the 5 minute. Which tells us this is definitely a higher time frame move. So at best, these longs will take this high into this imbalance at 33. At best. But we are stalking retracements to get short. Or need to see major failure to then attempt a long setup. And there will be a long setup. Unless this is like one of 5% of days where we just get an infinite sell. And that's fine. Right? And I see a lot of that especially on down days, because I think the tendency for the majority of people is to look at the long side. I know I certainly enjoy taking longs more than shorts. Wasn't always the case in my career, but right, this looks weak to me. It hasn't traded to this high. Not really interested in taking it short. If I'm looking at a wombo area, I'm sure that there'd be something in hindsight from the energy of the move that came in here. Okay, great. Right? But we got to be able to see that in real time and have confidence that it's going lower. This, in fact, changed order flow. But this is higher time frame. This is when we stay out of trouble. I need to see something very specific in order to get long. And that usually has some sort of intermediate time frame failure. Now that didn't work out here. We made a little bit of money. This ended up stopping break even. But I need to see something specific. Otherwise, I'm getting run. And I don't want to get run. I want to be right. I don't want to be early. And this is the interesting thing about scalping, and it's also why we kind of look at it being, unless you're consistently profitable with it, or at least you have the right sort of mentality for scalping is look how far down we are from our last area of interest that had a lot of volume. You could even look at this one. Like say we wanted to short here at 82 with the understanding that we probably should trade back up to here. Scalping is saying we've attempted to rally, we can't, we should go lower. To me, right? So if we zoom this down, maybe this candle closes weak, well guess what? 10-point scalp. 79.25. And I expect to make money. Look how far down this is. This would have been the slow of that closure, by the way, failing to make a valid low. There's a certain probability that's associated with it, but I'm essentially expecting to be right immediately, and now I'm break even. And target fill, right? Cheat code entry, cheat code entry. Market's telling me something that it's not ready yet. I don't know where this low is going to be, but I know what I don't want to see when the low is going to be hit. But look how far down this is. That's selling at 79, expecting the market to move up at some point another 50 points. Right? What do you think what are the chances people sold the close of that one? Now, personally, with these sort of violent movements, there's a different probability with that. Right? This being a little bit different. This closed on its high. That attempted to rally and could not, leading to further down prices. So there's a lot of context that go into scalping. A lot of it. And in the essence of sort of scalping theory, at some point here, we're either going to do one of two things. And it looks, and all right, let me get on my soapbox for a second. Because this is, again, like, this is where I differ a little bit, right? You've got structural swings that put in protected highs and lows. Those are areas we can risk off of. You guys are going to learn that in module 2 and 3 a little bit more instructively than from our live streams. For example, should price have returned to this, we would have been looking short. Or we would have looked for this to break structure based off of what happened here. And then we're returning to this area that broke structure, ideally at SNDR, and going higher. Right? Structure has to do with our risk. Non-structural swings like this, these are non-structural swings. They're not areas that I'm looking to risk off of when this price returns back to it, if it returned back to it. But what's the importance of them then? They're attempts that the market is making to reverse the trend. So they tell us different information than this does. Right? This now starts to become lethargic. That doesn't mean we're starting to look long underneath them or shorting out of them. But it means that we're nearing either a range that's occurring or we're nearing some sort of area where we're then going to have a higher time frame reversal point, and whatever that looks like. Sometimes it looks like this, where there's no opportunity of mitigation to get involved. You see multiple forms of these, right? And that's the purpose of non-structural price movement. Market is slowing down. It's telling us it's slowing down because we're starting to get bullish momentum, right? And you can see that personality here as well, can't you? Bull bar, okay, continues lower. Bull bar, continues lower. Finally, we get a sustained reversal. That doesn't mean that this is going to break and trade up to here. That has to do with if it's validating an intermediate time frame or not. Right? So what have we got here? We've got this 5-minute low, 58. We're looking at this, nearing a potential area where we're going to have another movement back up. Let's snap that, just in case. Just in case we get something we like. Right? Obviously not looking to go long in this nonsense. Why? Well, look at the chart. Nasty. Also an aggressive area for people that are looking to scalp. Maybe. Right? Now you've got this low, put in this high, traded lower. This low, this high is lunch meat. There it goes. Right? What are the chances you think we're going to trade up to this? This ledge here at 73.50, 73.50 equals. Probably pretty high. Especially if we get failure lower, which would be probably underneath this candle here at 61. Still nothing that I would even consider swinging on. What do I need for a swing position? There's your sweep and fail of this for your aggressive movement, at least to this. Valid low confirms it, yep. Order flow changes, structural break, yep. Okay. Those all come afterwards. What's the first piece of information I need to even consider that this is done moving lower? It happened up here, didn't work out. Intermediate time frame failure to go lower. That's right. Right, we're getting lower time frame in here. That's going to lead to lower time frame movement. We're likely going to see these highs taken at 73. Right? If we enter a range here and we start failing here, and then we trade lower and then we start failing here, say that takes another 10 to 15 minutes, and then we get a 15-minute failure underneath, that would lead to a pretty decent intermediate time frame reversal up to here in the 200s. I can get on board with that. Again, even short scalping in this, price looks like it's attempting to reverse. The curve could be bullish. That's low probability of taking scalps here, even with the short-term objective. For me, scalping in this trend, I need to be shorting attempts to rally that can't. I'm not looking at shorting an attempt to rally in here where I'm not sure if it's going to or not. Right? We failed underneath this candle once. Beautiful. It looks like failing above here wants to challenge it again, maybe even this low. You guys tell me, would you be looking long already? Okay. Very tempting, isn't it? If you're right, you catch the low in the bottom. But again, I don't need to be right. Sorry, I don't need to be early. Two, one. Now what? How come? Okay. Okay. Fill to close above, you mean? So we have a couple of different things in here, don't we? First off, why did I pause it here? Even though, like, first off, we're expecting this candle to be violent. Now, I expected this to close at least above here or something like that. And then this next candle trading back into this range. So this looks a little scarier than if this candle had closed here and then traded back in, even though it's actually achieving the same purpose. We've broken, we've now traded back into this range, and now we can leave. Right? But we're expecting violent because we got our sweep of all this liquidity here and failed to go lower. Right? This candle traded lower, then traded through, triggering a whole bunch of people getting blasted out of their shorts above here. So we have two options for this candle. We're either doing something like this, where we've traded up, traded down, traded up. We've swept liquidity here. We've now taken this high. We're now doing this. Right? Which will lead to failure. Either way, this will lead to failure. And then we come back down for our intermediate if we're going to run. Right? So we're spotting this becoming a range here because we're starting to see the semblance of it. Market slowing down. We've swept out the lower time frame longs, right? Where they're accumulating in here. People are getting involved, they're getting stopped out. People are getting involved here, they're getting stopped out. Right? We have two options with this down move. We either sweep and fail this now, in which case we really run, right? Or we have a higher time frame sweep that occurs later on, whenever this movement is done doing its lethargic nonsense. And hopefully this doesn't yield death. Right? And we would know based off of how that's sort of looking if it's going to lead to that or not. So you're correct in the sense that we've got our 5-minute candle or our 15-minute candle, whichever, right? This is our 5 here. So that's a pretty good spot inside of this to look for a potential failure to come back down, right? Or at least above this high. And let's actually snap that because I think that's going to be important. This 5-minute candle here, right? And again, candlestick video number 2, sweeping below it. We're now seeing the defense of it trading back down. We would expect to at least, we've traded the open, we expect to trade the high. What else? We've got a range, okay? So now if we're expecting to trade this high and we get a lethargic movement, we're expecting an intermediate time frame failure or a higher time frame double bottom. right? We might not take this long, and I think that's fair, right? Because you'd ideally want to be in if this closed and then traded back into this. I think that's fair. Or at least an attempt in here to sell off that can't. We're looking for a candle similar to maybe this one with bullish context, right? But yeah, I can understand pausing on this, right? I think that this goes higher, however that's going to do it. Based off of the violence that came in, I think somebody covered a whole bunch of their position. If this can't go lower, then we trade at least to this high at 190. Right? What you have to think about is who would be long in this. Very short-term participants, because they've been running everybody out, right? They generated liquidity, and this is why the 3-drive pattern or the wedge pattern or whatever you want to call it works for reversals. If you've got this, what's it doing? It's generating liquidity, running it out. Generating liquidity, running them out. Generating liquidity, right? And then they have to now chase. Everybody's out of the market that's on the short side in a wedge pattern that then falls. Everybody's out of the market on the long side that's in this pattern, right? Okay, we're going long, stop filled. Okay, we're going long, stop filled. Okay, we're going long, right? Now, anybody getting accumulation in here, this is where people are entering positions. Some of them are getting run out here. If you're an intermediate participant, your stop goes underneath this, which is why you have your higher time frame double bottoms that occur. Right? Shock here where we traded up to 189.50, 189.50. So, whereabouts are we drawing our wombo from? If we're looking short, now that we're getting a bit of a retracement. Ideally, we want it to be inside of this here. Do we have to trade into there? No. Why not? That's market structure. As much as we'd love it, that's our expectation. Right? We don't necessarily have to do it. And I think that this, you probably got your intermediate here, which I think would align with that, right? Maybe even from this. I'd be more inclined to sort of draw it from that there, personally. I doubt we trade up into this unless we trade back lower and we find strength and then we go on a rocket ship. But if we're drawing a continuation, we're drawing it from the energy of the move. And we've got this here, which is just above your 5-minute high. Does everybody understand why the wombo's from here to there? I suppose you could draw it from this. Right? But I'm looking at last structural bear bar with the manipulation lower that I'm omitting from this drawing. We all on the same page? Does that make sense? Energy of the move for continuations, usually from the area that broke significant lows. Right, so this would be ideal. Ideally, we get some sort of inducement. Failure below here would then send us higher. We have no imbalance in here at all. And our narrative is that we would look for a short to come back down into this area, even if it doesn't break this low. Or we're heavily looking at this now providing a higher time frame move, and I don't really think we have the data to go to the left to determine if we're in a higher time frame area of interest for the fractal nature, right? Ideally, we get like sort of like a wombo combo here on the higher time frame, and then we're looking for something to follow suit fractally. Right? But I want this 5 minute. And then if we get a violent movement away, what are we doing here? That low 180.25, did we take it? We did, by a tick. By a tick. Now the market can go up if it's going to. Or we trade all the way back down into here, which is also viable. Right? But that failure and a strong movement up. Very aggressive way of trading scalps. I think it's better to wait for something if it's going to unload, which we're seeing a lot of selling come in. It's generating nothing so far, so I think we go higher, run everybody out. Whether we trade up to this zone at 200 or we fail in here remains to be seen. We'll take what's given, but I definitely like trading above these equal highs. There it goes. Now what do we got? This is not A plus because we don't have the combo nature at all. That was a violent sell-off. I think we definitely run lower now. I ideally wanted some sort of closure in here. Right? As our 5 minute high was there, we had 5 minutes to be able to deal with this. So as much as I liked that, I can't say I would have taken that either. Speed this up a little bit, see what it ends up bringing us. I can't say I'd be looking long because I'm expecting a higher time frame double bottom. I think that this is where people get really held up with the wombo. I think Mikey would agree as well. Say we have something like this, or you've got something here, and we're looking for continuation trades. And these occasionally will deliver movement, and then we're kind of going, well, when are we expecting to trade back in for the confirmation, and when are we not? Right? Because sometimes these will work and this is the entry, or this is the entry, and we've got the combination, cool, but what are we missing? Why did I just get wrecked for 10 or 15 points? And it's because we're not taking into account structure, or at least failures that are going on. We just failed a 5 minute valid high and we had an internal failure that went on. So wombo or not, we shouldn't be looking for longs in this. We're looking for that failure and then we can get involved. But this is danger zone territory now because of structure. Does that make sense? So that's how we stay out of trouble. Right? It's far better to wait for price if it's going to double bottom here versus if it's going to continue lower to wherever the objective is. This could sweep and trade down to here and still end up rallying significantly, especially if we build an SNDR and then break it, right? If we did something like this, we see this quite often. Boom, right? And this could actually do something like all the way down here and then come back up. 15-minute candles have a lot of room, especially with volatility like we saw last week. Especially with that, right? So we're very interested, but we need to react to what price is telling us. And I think your first sign of the trade not working out, say you're interested in that wombo here, is the inability for significant higher time frame price action. Usually we'll have, after your sweeps, we want to see that sort of aggressive movement that at least breaks order flow, trades back in, and then we see some sort of resistance. We want to get to break even as quick as possible, ideally with these confirmation trades. Right? Instead, we're seeing attempts to rally that, well, actually that's pretty good. And maybe not. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. All right. What are we thinking? Closure above this, validating it, and then maybe a move? Possibly. I think anything else is major sus. Right? If we trade up and we fail above this, that's a change in order flow for sure. But I'd be pretty nervous if this movement down was violent and then this was just intermediate time frame inducement that's going on. What do we got on R5? Yuck. We failed above this candle. Okay, let's take that off. That worked out really nicely, obviously. We've got that low at 59. Do we look like we're ready yet? I don't think so. Despite what the 1 minute would have you believe. We'll find out in about 1 minute, 10 seconds here, if not already. No imbalance, right? No imbalance at all. So if we get something like this, that's just going to lead to this low being taken. If this trades down and then breaks, then we have our SNDR here that's now broken this trend in a sense. Even though I think that would be your predominant order flow high, this is definitely a violent candle. And I think people will use that big time. So much for scalping series, isn't it? I think I've taken 2 scalps today. She's getting ready. I don't want to get stopped out. What about you guys? What's she gonna do? What's she gonna do? Oh, oh, we got 50-25. There she goes, I think. Who's aggressive? Are we still expecting death? If you're this aggressive and you're not consistent yet, you need to wait. You need to wait. This could drop significantly. Sometimes you'll be right and you'll be literally in at the low. Motion's running haywire. Am I right, or do I blow up? No, maybe not that crazy. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Are we already in? Do we have FOMO? We're now in here at like 59. How are we feeling, lads? Whoop. There's your 5. There's your 5. Range bound. Sign of strength would be above this high. Doesn't look very lovely, does it? The 1 minute just validated, however. So what do we do? What do we do? Wait for 5 minute valid low. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Wait for failure to go lower. Okay. Loving the discussion. Good. Good. How many people do we have in here? 19. 19. 16 lurkers. Hopefully spending time with their fam, telling me just to hurry up so they can watch the recording. Let's see what we got. We're definitely excited though, aren't we? You know, the close of the candle sweep. Okay, tight stop. Okay. Silk aggressive, a man after my own heart. There's your 1 minute close. RR is good. Where's your stop? Is it underneath the low? Okay. Morning, Luke. I was just giving you a hard time, man. I need that attempt to sell off. Ideally, that fails underneath this low here. Or at least trades into the open of this and goes on a rocket ship. Break even definitely if you're taking that. Yikes. Nasty business. Very nasty business. And if you're out, yep, absolutely. You hit that again. Understanding that you're trading very aggressively. And here we are. Now what are we looking for? Now what are we looking for? Okay? What just happened from an order flow perspective? We finally just flipped, right? We had all this nonsense, which culminated into this. Now we're looking for this. Now it's time to send it. Right? 5-minute chart. Probably still nasty. We could very well get wrecked here. Absolutely. But I think that it's attempting to go lower. And we just had at least something that would make shorts panic. If I was short and I saw that, I would be flat, no re-entry. Therefore, one major reason to want to go long. And now we've broken this area of interest right here, that low to that high. Right? This is kind of our SNDR that just sent us lower. From an order flow standpoint, we just closed above it. We're trading back down. We actually liquidated it. Right? So now we're in. Let's say we're in from this closure. Okay. Stop should be below this low. I doubt it comes anywhere near that. But that's where our invalidation point is. Where's our target? Low-hanging fruit should be this high. Low-hanging fruit. At least this one. At least this one. However, this high, as Silk just mentioned, failed to put in that low. If this long is a scalp, that's right. This long failed to change order flow. But it did have the effect of mitigating all of this. We've now swept everything out. If we're right, we should be right pretty much immediately. The other one above. I mean this one. This one that traded up here. This one didn't mitigate anything because our last area to mitigate is actually this. Right? From a fractal perspective, we have sort of SNDRs here. This low mitigated that one, traded below it. This movement actually should have broken this. It didn't. Right? What this was trying to do is validate this 5-minute high, or sorry, this 5-minute low, and it failed. And the reason, or at least the effect of that, was that we took this low. Now, if we're inside of a range, our other consideration is trading back into the middle of it. Operating on liquidity principles, what are we looking for? We're looking to see if we trade above this high, do we fail and have bearish PA that then leads us lower, similar to what happened up here. That's very viable. In a range, we operate on liquidity principles. Right? But this is send it territory. So we're not going to be quick to take this off. And if we get a higher time frame move that comes out of this, then we're actually going to be moving it from this high. Right now, we're looking aggressively for this to move higher. And then ideally, we have an area that's going to allow us to add to this position. At least for something into here in the 200s. So let's see if we get wrecked or not. Ideal situation, we get a very weak closing bear bar that then sweeps underneath and then flies. That would be perfect. There's our weak closing bear bar. Okay. And I think it's important to as well, even if you're not considering adding, I think it's important as well to at least look at it from that lens. Not only will that allow you to scale in your trading as well, but you're also looking for what you want to see for other participants to then enter and then fly. No idea, Luke, if I'm honest. No idea. We don't really have the ability to look past the 4th of August. So we could be. I'm mainly just reading the right side of the chart and wombos from this sort of PA. Yeah. Okay, beautiful, 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 beautiful. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Right, looking at this. Our last 5-minute area looks like we traded above it, we traded back down. This could not break. If we were going to break, we'd be looking at something like this. People should buy the close of this and put their stops underneath here now. Right? We just validated a 5-minute high. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. First area of interest, this high right here would have a lot of liquidity at 84. Right? So if we're looking for movement, we essentially want it to take this high. We want to see what that downward movement is like. Right? Whereabouts are we looking? Ideally, we have some sort of a confirmation wombo combo that comes in. Now, this movement traded higher than traded lower. I would expect, if we're going to have any sort of wombo continuation, say it stops there, then we've got something in the 70s which aligns with this area of interest. Right? So we just took that high, beautiful. Inside of a range, that's perfectly viable. We're starting to get a bit of a higher time frame movement out of this. We'll see what we get. A little bit of an inverse smiley coming in here. Not eager to take this off. By the way, break even would be after this attempt to sell off that then fails. Right? So that's when you go break even. You don't go break even on this. Right? Yeah, we got our push. Right? We actually didn't even close above either of these bearish candles. Well, technically, we closed above this one, I suppose. This will be an important next candle that comes in, as we did break order flow from this low. Again, I'm not terribly concerned with taking it off too soon. I'm looking for this to be a valid movement back up. I don't like that this is getting held up a little bit. Ideally, I'd want to see this range here at minimum. And the reason is because this is sort of your first shove, trades down, mitigates. Now we want to see that higher time frame push. Right? And if this range is here, then this not being a structural high, I think this range would take us into this zone. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Yeah, okay. Getting a little bit greedy here. Let's at least move it to this. We'll see. That high being 193.75. We just broke it. Lovely. This would be a very valid area to take one off if we were in two. And I probably should have added in here on the failure to go lower. Are we flat? Are we happy with our stop? Or should we trail it more aggressively? This first imbalance not doing what I wanted to do. I think we go a little bit lower. At least into this area of interest that just broke above this. You'll notice this isn't actually a protected high even on the 1 minute time frame. We are in a range, which means people will be very quick to take their profits in here. I think that's fair. Internally, this isn't part of structure. This is just an SNDR that I'm looking at, responsible for rally, base, rally. Right? But in theory, we actually should still be break even. I think this is just sort of trailing aggressive for continual price action. I would have wanted to see a sweep underneath this low. We didn't get that. So this is actually in danger of taking our stop out right now. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's go, let's go, let's go. That was definitely a good place to add. Yeah, I agree. I think that this is probably a really poor stop placement, actually, in hindsight. If I'm looking at this, it's probably pretty viable for it to have actually taken our stop, traded into the wombo area, and then lifted. So that was actually a little bit poor trade management by me, even with the aggressive idea. And I think this was a viable place to look for a scalp as well. So we'll see what happens if this trades into our area of interest here, and then we'll kind of revisit what's going on here. And I think you could probably trail up, so you'd have one in here, assuming this takes this high. If it fails here, obviously, then we're out. There we go. Okay. And now what are we looking for? Right. Now we're starting to see market really starting to lift. Beautiful. I do think we trade underneath that low if we're going to come back down from this area of interest. Yeah, no problem, MW. I think the energy of the move came from this, if I'm honest. So let's say we have that here. Then we've kind of got our 5 minute wombo there. We're starting to get a nice little movement that's coming in. Liquidity would be underneath this 74. So let's see if that actually lines up nicely with our 1 minute. I think that's viable, although it's a little bit unclear. We might even consider this here. And as it stands right now, I'd probably draw it from that. I think that's fair. So we validated this high. We validated this one. We've actually got some structural swings. People should be looking long on this, but I'm going to be a little bit patient. I'm actually thinking that we've traded into our objective. If we fail here, then we're actually coming back down to that. I'm definitely not scalping short, but I will be looking to take some longs on failure to go lower. And we'll see whereabouts that ends up. I'll get rid of that now. Get rid of that now. What do we get? Now this is interesting because I think that I see a whole bunch of different ideas with sort of how to maximize the days where you're actually seeing things properly. And people will, okay, I've taken a winner or I've taken 2 winners and now I'm sizing up. So I'll take double the size on my next trade and then double the size on that to try and capitalize on things. Like that a lot actually. Right. 23.6 would be early. We'll see if we get an ad in here. Right. Aggressively trading as protected low in here. Right. We saw that quick violent move out. Looking for a change in order flow to get long as well, and then stock goes underneath. Give me my adding opportunity. There it is. Aggressively trading in. Let's see. All right, I'll put this there. I'll take 1 off of the 23.6. But this should go now. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Comes out 23.6. Aggressively going to take 1 off. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Right? And by the way, this is when you're expecting these imbalances to not put in new lows. When you're sweeping the objective. We've already cleared out the liquidity underneath the protected low. We've taken the objective. Sure, we're tapping into imbalance, but we're done. We're done. Aim higher? Yeah, probably. Probably. This is, yeah. Yeah, at least this consolidation here. I think that's a pretty good spot. 12. Attempt to go lower, obviously. No bueno. You could aggressively trail your stop up. I think this takes this high for sure. Now, structurally, we've got this going on. We've just got an internal intermediate time frame double bottom now. So why not? Right? Like, let's pause this actually, because this is an important thing to look at. Right? We're doing what? We're looking at lower time frame structure and all this sort of thing and figuring out how to add or whatever else. But where's the intermediate time frame target at minimum? Is it this area of interest? No, it's all the way up here, wherever this ends up being. This consolidation, isn't it? That's where we're turning to. This was the intermediate time frame SNDR. Now, assuming that we broke in a lower time frame here, where should we trade to? Yeah, if we're looking at market structure, then we should trade back into the midpoint of this, which is 320. Right? If we're looking at the SNDR that broke this low, this is that here. We've now broken the lower time frame one. Assuming we continue on with our structure, we've just validated this 15-minute low. Traded back in and mitigated the 15-minute time frame now. Now we're ready to go. Like, it's go time. At minimum to this area, which we would expect at least a little bit of a movement. And if we don't get that, if we don't get this, like some sort of like major failure that then takes us lower, and we can't just be married to this as our target as well. We've got to react to specific areas, right? Oftentimes we tap into those higher time frame areas of interest. Well, I guess that's done now, isn't it? We tap into higher time frame areas of interest, right? And then that puts in a new low. This was violent and then took out all that liquidity, eventually giving us a double bottom that took the midpoint of the prior zone we just left. That's viable. Same thing happened here, right? We've got to play our edge. So if we're looking at our 5 and our 15, we've got no structure here. We've got the 1 minute. We've now traded into that. Clearly no movement away. I think we trade up into this. And now I'm looking at this fractal here. So ideally your high here at 62, maybe even 77. Let's leave it at 77. Although very possible that we clear all of these out. And now what are we doing? We're looking at lower time frame. We've now got our intermediate double bottom. Until we see some sort of semblance of major rejection, we're looking at trading to the intermediate area of interest, right? So low-hanging fruit would have been trading into this zone, which we did. We then traded back down. Right? So what would be easier? Do we expect another movement back down? Say we trade into this. Do we expect a movement back down? Right. So should we be aggressive with our taking profits? Maybe into this consolidation here. There's multiple ways to trade this. We could take this off and have this be our target and look to re-enter. And then the downside of that is that we don't get an opportunity to re-enter at all. So we don't trade back down into this zone or this SNDR or wherever you guys are looking at. Maybe there's a wombo combo area where, let's say, the high ends up being here. And now we've got our intermediate area of interest that we're really looking to take a trade out of. That's viable, right? Or do we set our target with pretty high confidence, let's say 80%, that it's going to hit it and we just walk away? Or we trail our stops up and it doesn't matter the internal structure that's going to form there because we know whereabouts it's going with a high degree of accuracy. That's up to you guys. It's also an area that I kind of differ at as well. Right? Personally, I feel that if we trade into here and we fail and come back down into here, I'd rather take that next move or add or something like that. That's typically where I'm most comfortable trading. Locking in, trades lower, grab it as well. I do think we trade up to this consolidation for sure. They would be hard pressed to change my mind. And I think we would need a pretty major break in order flow, or at least something much higher that would do something similar to, I don't know, maybe we build an SNDR here that then runs this protected high. We then liquidate it and do this. That would lead to lower prices for me. But I think that that's unlikely that happens here. I think that would happen up in here if it's going to. Right? Another valid high coming in on this. You'll notice we actually didn't reset swings at all because we didn't create any valid highs or valid lows in this. We created a valid low here and a valid high up in here, and that was it, right? So we still got high, low, even though that swept, high, right? And here we go again. Tightening up a little bit if this breaks, which it looks like it's going to. So this will be interesting to see what comes up. Not wild about following lower time frame structure in higher time frame movement, but you've definitely got an area where you can yeah, isn't that funny? Don't even have to watch those videos to kind of understand whereabouts everybody looks at the same spots, I suppose, eh? And I think I missed, you probably would have been in on that here, and I would have yeah, I probably would have missed that one. I would have been looking for this. Yeah, I think well, you obviously would have gotten really paid for that. Yeah. Right. So trading into this area of interest, if we get major failure that comes in here, then I'll likely look to exit this quick. A little bit of a ledge. Problem with backtesting is I can't really tell if orders are speeding up or not. All I can go by are the candles. Speed this up slightly. See if we get our higher time frame shove. I would expect this area to hold. And again, you're sort of looking at maybe we've got lower time frame wombos and whatnot for scalps. Right? Bang. Shocker. Surprising to nobody at this point, I'm sure. Seeing quite a bit of failure coming in here. Welcome back, Nesnos. All right, so let's say 204 half. Not wild about this PA, but this is our structural area of interest. What's our 5 minute telling us? What's our 5 minute telling us? Do we have any imbalances? Not particularly. Maybe right here. Right? But we'd have to trade quite a bit lower at 94 to be able to... I think structurally we trade back down to this area, which would be sort of your intermediate wombo. We're actually planning this out pretty nicely, aren't we? So as it stands right now, right literally at the area we entered. All right, we're starting to get lift. Good. What's that low? 94.25. Make sure things are right here. Looks like we're entering a bit of a range. And what else we got here? I suppose that should be drawn basically from there, shouldn't it? Okay. Does that line up? Okay, so that's actually drawing it from this low here, which I think is fair. That's where the 15-minute area of interest was. Ooh, that was close. And this is the trouble with swinging for those that like to be in and out of the market is we kind of look at this as, well, that was almost 20 points we gave up. But what you're doing is you're risking that 20 points, allowing this pullback to happen based off of structure. And you're risking 20 points to get an extra 50 out of it, 60 out of it. That's valid risk reward to me. Now, if we see failure that occurs up here, this is our higher time frame zone. This would be the area where I get nervous. Right? We're seeing this sort of range-bound PA happen. Obviously, we traded back into this swing. We're now making another high. Right? We've got lethargic movement coming in. Right? So I'm looking at this. I'm not giving this a huge leash for failure. I'm not giving this a big leash. Right? So now, ideally, I don't want to give back a lot if this is going to fail. I want this to explode above this high and go. Right? We've got our closure above here, but not very eager. And there it goes. Right? So we'll see if this runs from here with this sort of movement, but this is your intermediate time frame double top. Right? As much as I think it still goes higher, you've now, well, you can see it here. Right? So we're getting our lethargic movement, possibly looking for this movement to come back down, lethargic leading into it. We're sort of got this movement down, which then led to this push. Yeah, and we're starting to see swings tighten up, right? So that's kind of how you protect yourself a little bit more than otherwise. Now we'll see if they give us any scalps in this. And I'll kind of walk through a little bit of this movement. And the only reason I would look to scalp now is we kind of got this range. I'm only looking for long, so looking at liquidity sweeps, sort of how price trades into these areas of interest, so on and so forth. Right, but as the video that's coming out very, very soon, it's kind of this this video that Mikey and I were working on where the 5 common mistakes people typically make on their way to profitability. The first one is sort of trading against the current objective, right? So, for example, anybody shorting in here when we needed to have a double top versus going long in here when we needed to have that higher time frame double bottom, you're going to get wrecked. So we're expecting higher, but we're trading lower, right? We're expecting some sort of failure. We got that here. We validated the high, and now we're trading lower. We're failing to go higher. If you're going long in this, we're expecting to lose money. If you put your stop below here, it's about to get run. Right? And then the low probability event that it keeps going and I'm wrong, fine. Fine. Doesn't mean I'm looking short, even though I think it's going to trade lower. Right? I'm looking for climactic action, or I'm looking for the inability for the market to do one thing or the other. Right? So people would probably buy that long inside of this SNDR. I think that's valid. People will look for wombos maybe from here to here, right? Get a little bit of a movement back into this range, but I'm looking for something in here. If this closes on its low climactically, then I'm going to buy it. Right? Quick stop. And what that would do is it would give me inducement. Nearly took me out there as well. Right, and immediately break even. Right, now if this fails this low at 95, then I'm probably going to close this out quick. But I'm expecting 10 points out of this.
Target build.
Okay. Only 5-point range. A little wild, actually. But that is what it is. This would now act as inducement into our area of interest, which I'm still looking at. Yeah, no doubt. Into our area of interest. Yeah, this is normal PA. I suppose 5 points. Who gives a shit? Right. So aggressively, you're looking for location-based trading. You're looking to the left. Whereabouts is the liquidity? You either have this low. Maybe you have that one there. Right? But I'm looking at these last structural bars that generated a ton of buying pressure. So we took this one. No sweep. No sweep. Expected a sweep. Didn't get it. We now have this movement in. This is your aggressive area that you're looking to long at. So there's two different things, right? Ideally, what do we want to see? We want to see this candle close here, right? Notice what time it is, 1 o'clock, which means that our 5-minute candle closed here, our 15-minute candle closed here, our hourly candle closed here, and then we just completed an objective. What happens if we trade through this candle on our intermediate time frames? We go on a rocket ship. If we're right, what happens if we trade through on our hourly time frame? Do you think there's a possibility that we do this? No. No, it's not. That'll be an ideal situation. But based off of what we're dealing with, you will likely not have an opportunity for a retracement back down. These are all little things you need to be aware of before you hit the button. There's your 1-minute closure. Getting a little bit of a reaction. Ideally, we get a sweep of it and then we trade through. Given that that's a higher time frame point of interest, that's unlikely. This is where a buy stop with a stop underneath the low would work. Assuming we validate this. It looks like we're actually going to validate the entire manipulation leg itself. And I'm here sitting on my hands like a dope. Okay, strong closure. What are we waiting for? You've got a few different things. You've got the manipulation leg itself, so that open at 96, maybe. Maybe we aped in. Maybe we buy the close of this. We have a decent stop underneath. We're inside of a pretty decent swing. Right? And yes, it is a swing, as we did have a closure above this that was validated. So this is a protected low, putting in a new high. We then traded down with a valid high, made a valid low. It's not a range. Nasty business, not allowing an opportunity to get in. Now I'm sitting here looking for an attempt to sell off that can't. Looks like a bear bar. What do we do? Do we wait? Do we ape? There's your 5-minute candle. Dangerous, isn't it? We've got to validate this high at 205. And we're at 205 right now. So what happens if we buy this candle and we're wrong? We're going to be really wrong really quick. So what do we do, lads? We comfortable missing it? Or what? Maybe we get a sweep. Maybe we wait. Okay. What's our other options? Turn back time. What about now? What did we just build, potentially? So now we've got two different strategies. We can either wait for a trade back into this and then fly, or we sit and we're comfortable understanding that the way to get involved with low risk was here. If we bought here, our stop actually had to be underneath there, which means we either size down or it's not part of our strategy, and we make the decision to let it go. That's fine too. But hitting it here after all this is nonsense. Hitting it here is nonsense. Our target is this at 227 and then much higher. Man, I hate Ninja Trader's charting abilities. Oh! We'll go for another 9 minutes. Gross PA. Higher time frame movement. I think everybody can see the cheat code entry, at least with the SNDR. That's actually a decent probability setup there. And the market review, we talk about how we met. Yeah, no doubt, right? I mean, look at it, guys. Literally in the midpoint of the range. What the hell? Here's another scalp coming in right here. Closure here. SNDR creator right underneath. Attempting to go lower, failing. Not for the faint of heart. This is pure price action. Barely touch back into this zone and continuing on. Right? And what we're seeing is the inability for the market to trade lower. Right? So sometimes you'll get wrecked taking this long or the continuation of it. Right? So let's see if we get, again, we're looking at objectives, right? So if we've achieved this objective, price action wise, we should see death. Something like this. Beautiful, right? Not looking short, my goodness. But guess what happens if this fails to go lower? Death the other way. Yeah, I think we've actually missed a couple of big trades on this. Let's see it. Yuck. Somehow that's even higher than I thought it was going to be. Look at this. This candle closes strong. I'm actually going to be buying the close of it. Call me crazy. Wieland. Oh. You actually, I mean, again, this is tons of price action in theory or whatnot, right? But this, you buy the close if you get your movement down and then it actually continues on, then you actually add in there and then you're immediately break even, right? And people will actually buy the close of that one and so on and so forth until eventually we see some sort of change in personality with this parabolic move. As you can imagine, these are very hard to hold on to.
Target filled.
Thank you very much. Right? But in theory, buying in here actually, or at least taking sweeps on failure, after we've established we kind of have this lower time frame range, which is going to then expand. Right? We need to see something a little bit more conclusive. So let's actually speed this up and then we'll kind of stop on certain candles, right? Now, 3 candles shoving. This is getting a little bit overextended, so I'm not going to buy the close of this one. I would only buy the close of this one after the attempt, or sorry, this attempt to fail, which could not. Right? Now finally into our objective here. Now what? Can we get some scalps into this? You guys want to see some scalps? Hopefully some winners and some losers to learn from. Who cares? Take the money and run, no doubt. Let's go 5 pointers. Let's see. Okay. Ideally, we get some sort of flush of this low, which gives us a move. I think that people will sell. I'm looking at what the market's attempting to do and what it's successfully doing. But it's exhausting, I will say that, right? So if we get sort of a range and we fail underneath it, then I'm looking higher. If we create a range and we fail above it, strong push away, then I'm looking lower. Up to this area of interest. Bum, 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 bum. Right, and looking for quick ones. Check DM. We'll do fine. We'll do a different scalping series. We'll keep our day clean. How about that? We'll keep our day clean. Let's have a look. We'll have a look. So inside of our area of interest, definitely think we trade higher. We've got a lovely little barbecue here. I think that pullbacks to get long to this area of interest would be good. For sure. Do we trade back down to this? I think that's unlikely. Unlikely, and I only say that because of the intensity. I think if we were going to do that, we would have done something like that here. We might get a movement down to that SMDR. But if I had to kind of guess, I think this is just send it sort of territory, right? We might get some consolidation. Looks like we already are. Right underneath this area of interest, which would then break above it. So let's see if we're right. Shall we? I'll let you guys go for the morning. Get rid of that now. Right. So another scalp coming in there. Maybe a second one if we get a sweep of that. Bang. Trades back in. What do we get? Back into that area of interest. And do we run the 80s? Or into the 80s? What do we got? Ooh, valid high on the 5. Valid high on the 5. What do we get? Whoop. There goes the target. Do we go higher? Oh, send it. Send it. Did we get this one? 302? Do we get 302? Yes. Success. Now what? Death or blast? Oh dear. Take your profits. Take your profits. All right. Let's anybody have any questions or anything about that